Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about retro video games. Today I'm talking about something that's just joined the ranks of my favorite Nintendo games. It's Super Spy Hunter. Super Spy Hunter was developed by Sunsoft and released on NES in 1992. It's a vehicular combat game where you follow a track, avoid obstacles, and take out enemies. There is a story in the manual about being the CIA's last line of defense against terrorists who threaten to plunge the world into chaos, but none of this is even hinted at in-game. You just drive and shoot. This is a game I was not familiar with, but was pleasantly surprised by. At first, it seems like a rather straightforward racing-type game, and it actually reminded me a lot of the Autopia level from Adventures in the Magic Kingdom. But it soon became clear that this was much more complex and impressive. For one thing, your car can shoot in multiple directions. There's a two-pronged cannon atop your car, and by holding down A, you can change the angles at which they point, whether it's straight ahead, to the sides, or even behind you. Whatever best suits the current attack pattern of enemy vehicles which are trying to ram into you. Being hit by vehicles doesn't do damage on its own, but hitting the walls will hurt you, and going off the road entirely will make you lose a life. You start out with 4 health and 5 lives, but can get more of both. Fairly often, you'll come across weapon vehicles, which look like transport trucks that have various power-ups for you. The red trucks can give you extra life, up to a total of 12 health, faster firing speed, or greater power. There's also a cannon control pickup, which will change the cannons atop your car to automatically point in the direction of the closest threats. This one is really useful, as the manual controls are a little on the slow side. The blue weapon trucks give you bonuses like a one-time ability to bomb everything on screen, or to sprout spikes from your wheels that will damage anything that gets close. You can also get a 1-up or refill your life bar. One of the coolest things about Super Spy Hunter is that you're not always driving a car. At times you're in a boat or even a plane, and that changes things up considerably. In the game's 5th stage, you start out driving a boat, avoiding naval mines which can kill you instantly. Then you transition to driving and have to avoid flaming oil cans falling off the backs of trucks. Then you change into a plane and face off against enemies attacking from both land and sea. There are 6 stages in all, and each ends in a boss fight. The bosses all look and play quite differently. Some are like your basic shoot-'em-up bosses, where you have to avoid a ton of projectiles while shooting at a weak point. While others will telegraph instant kill attacks, and you need to react quickly to avoid them. What makes them extra challenging is the fact that most bosses can move around a lot, and hitting the walls hurts you. Things can be going really well, but then the boss makes a move and pins you against a wall, and things go downhill fast. The 4th stage boss in particular was a real challenge that took many attempts, and I was none too pleased when I had to face it a second time at the end. When you die, you lose some of your power-ups and life bar, which makes things much harder, but there are fairly forgiving checkpoints for an NES game. The presentation of Super Spy Hunter is impressive. Sunsoft's music is great, as usual, and there are some very cool effects used in the levels. As a game that came out late in the NES lifecycle, the developers knew how to make the most of the technology. The first thing that struck me, less than a minute in, was this really cool cornering effect that gives the impression of the game having much more dimension than it actually does. While I don't find the vehicle sprites all that interesting to look at, I love the level design and effects used. A roadway is the main environment that you're traveling on, but each stage has at least 1 or 2 different mechanics or effects mixed in. In Stage 1, there's a segment where your car drives in the water and has to make a series of jumps on narrow pathways. There's also a swaying suspension bridge to race across. In Stage 2, you drive through a desert with large patches of quicksand that will pull you in if you get too close. It rains in Stage 3, making the road slippery. You also jump and soar through the air and get to watch the road reappear underneath you as you descend. It's all just really well done and a lot of fun to play. I also really like that at times road signs will appear to let you know about what's coming up ahead, whether it's a jump, a corner, or even a place you need to slow right down to traverse a precarious route. There are still a few places where you can die due to not knowing exactly how to move, but for the most part, this isn't a game you need to memorize in order to be successful. If I had to list some negatives of the game, one would be that some sections feel like they go on a little too long. There's one kind of dull part in Stage 3, and in Stage 5, before facing the final boss, you get an easy run of flying where you can pick up tons of power-ups. This sounds great, but in practice, it's over a minute of the exact same things flying at you with no challenge or change. There's also some flicker and slowdown, but that's really to be expected given the size of some bosses and the amount of things on screen at once. Overall, it's an incredibly fun game and the soundtrack just adds to the excitement. Tracks sample the Peter Gunn theme, which is the definitive spy music, and everything is incredibly upbeat with a great bassy sound. It's perfect 8-bit driving music. Super Spy Hunter was preceded by Spy Hunter, but it's not exactly a direct sequel. Spy Hunter was a 1983 arcade game by Bally Midway. It was ported to the NES by Sunsoft in 1987. While the game certainly looks similar at first glance, the original is much less interesting. There are no power-ups, no changing vehicles, no discrete stages or boss fights. You just play until you get a game over or you start seeing the same backgrounds over again. The sound effects are also quite grating. The actual sequel to Spy Hunter was Spy Hunter 2, which only came out in arcades in 1987 and never gained much popularity. Sunsoft released this game as Battle Formula for the Famicom in Japan, and while it was clearly influenced by Spy Hunter, it wasn't officially related. However, when it came time to release in North America, Sunsoft got the rights to the name from Bally Midway and Super Spy Hunter was born. The Spy Hunter series received a reboot on the 6th generation of consoles in the early 2000s and then another reboot on handhelds in 2012. I think this little NES outlier is likely the best of the bunch though. Super Spy Hunter is a great NES game. It's challenging, but fair, and the variation in level design really makes it stand out. The music is so good that I'd listen to it outside of playing the game, and overall it was just a really good time. I highly recommend checking this one out. If you want to see more, check out my review of Breakthrough, another vehicle shooter, or another of my videos. I have a Patreon if you want to support my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.